Imagine being treated like you don't exist. Invisible, overlooked, mocked by the very people who walk past you every day. Now imagine being invited to the grandest party of your life not as a guest, but as a joke. That was Victoria's world, a cleaning lady in the heart of Beverly Hills, laughed at, underestimated, and humiliated. But what happened next? No one expected. She walked into that ballroom like a DIVA, every eye locked on her, every laugh turning into shock. Tonight, you're about to witness a story of courage, secrets, and justice that will leave the rich and powerful trembling, and everyone else inspired. Stay with us, because this isn't just a story, it's a revelation. The grand hall of the Blackwood Mansion glittered like a kingdom of glass and gold. Beverly Hills' richest people sipped champagne, shared fake compliments, and sharpened their cruelty behind polite smiles. Their laughter echoed off the marble walls, sharp, rehearsed, heartless. That was when she entered. Victoria walked down the staircase with the grace of a queen returning to her palace. Her gown of deep sapphire blue flowed behind her like a living shadow. Diamonds glimmered at her neck, and the confidence in her eyes silenced the music itself. But the wealthy crowd didn't see beauty. They saw a joke. Their joke. Look who finally showed up, Richard Blackwood whispered to his guest, smirking behind his glass of champagne. Our little cleaning lady decided to play princess. Mocking laughter spread through the room like poison. Victoria, 35, had spent 2 years cleaning every corner of this mansion. Always invisible, always polite, always treated like she didn't exist. And the invitation she'd received 3 days ago, it wasn't kindness. It was a trap, an invitation designed to humiliate her in front of all of California's elite. Richard had even made a bet with his wife. $100,000. Says she won't dare show up, he bragged, the day before. And if she does, Helena giggled, she'll probably look ridiculous. They thought she would come in borrowed clothes. They thought she would tremble. They thought she would run home crying. What they didn't know was simple. Victoria Temps had once lived a life grander than any of them. And she was done hiding. As she walked through the hall, whispers followed her like winds on broken glass. My God, she really came, Senator Weston's wife whispered. And that dress, where did she get it? Probably rented. Poor thing. Victoria heard it all. Yet her smile remained calm, almost royal, as if she carried a secret that could set the entire mansion on fire. Richard strutted toward her, arrogance dripping from every step. Well, Victoria, he said loudly, ensuring everyone heard. I'm impressed. Not everyone gets to attend events like this. You must feel intimidated. Victoria tilted her head slightly, her voice soft but sharp. A person like me, you mean? For the first time that evening, Richard's confidence cracked. He tried again. You know what I mean. This isn't your usual environment. True, Victoria replied, stepping forward. This is far below the standards I grew up with. The guests exchanged confused looks. What was she talking about? Before Richard could respond, Victoria smiled dangerously. You invited me here as a joke, Richard, but tonight will be educational. For all of us. Her calmness chilled the room. The music fell silent. Even the chandeliers seemed to lean in to listen. Richard clinked his glass loudly to regain control. Everyone. Our special guest tonight, Victoria, our hard-working cleaning lady. Laughter exploded again. Flashes from phones lit up her face as rich socialites captured the moment, eager to mock her online. But the confidence in Victoria's eyes didn't waver. Patricia Weston slithered over, wearing a grin as fake as her diamonds. Tell me, dear, she purred, how long did it take you to find that dress? It's ambitious. Victoria looked her in the eye. It belonged to my mother. Vivian Chambers laughed. Oh, darling, did she steal it from a thrift store? No, Victoria answered. She wore it the last time she attended a ballroom like this. 20 years ago, when she still carried her name. Isabella Temps Blackwood. A glass slipped from someone's hand and shattered. Richard froze. What did you just say? Victoria's posture straightened like a blade being unsheathed. My mother was Isabella Temps Blackwood, daughter-in-law of Henry Blackwood. And this, she lifted her chin, is my home by blood. Whispers roared like a storm. You're lying. Richard barked, voice cracking. Victoria reached into her sleek purse and pulled out a ring heavy with gold and history. The legendary Blackwood family engagement ring. Engraved, unmistakable. Gasp ripped through the room. This ring, she said, was my grandfather's gift to my mother. A gift he tried to bury along with the truth. Richard's face turned ghost white. No. You stole it. You cannot steal something that already belongs to you. Victoria replied calmly. The crowd's mood shifted, pity turning to suspicion, suspicion to horror. Vivian whispered, is she serious? Patricia murmured, this can't be real. Victoria turned to them, I'm not Richard's cousin, she said, letting the silence drip. I'm his half-sister. The hall erupted into chaos. Richard stumbled back, gripping the wall. You're insane. My father would never. Oh, he did, Victoria cut in. For 5 years, he supported my mother and me. Until someone, she stared directly at Richard, decided to erase us. Helena stared at her husband. Richard, what is she saying? She's lying. Richard snapped, but his shaking hands betrayed him. Victoria raised her hand. Enter. 3 figures walked into the hall, each carrying truth like a weapon. Diane Morrison, Beverly Hills, most feared investigative journalist. Attorney David Chun, specialist in inheritance fraud. And finally, Dr. Hamilton, the Blackwood family doctor. Helena gasped. Dr. Hamilton, why are you here? The doctor stepped forward, guilt in his eyes. Because it's time the truth came out. The hall grew so silent. People stopped breathing. 20 years ago, Dr. Hamilton said, I was forced to falsify Henry Blackwood's death certificate. Helena staggered. The doctor continued, voice trembling, Henry Blackwood did not die of natural causes. He was slowly poisoned. Gasps swept across the room. Richard shouted, you're lying. But the doctor pressed on. Before he died, Henry discovered missing money Richard stole. He planned to expose him. Days before he could, he fell violently ill. Victoria closed her eyes for a moment, letting years of pain dissolve. Attorney Chun stepped forward. We tested Henry's blood last week. The arsenic levels were fatal. Phones dropped. Hands covered mouths. People stumbled back from Richard as if he were toxic. And then, Victoria connected her phone to the mansion speakers. A recording played. Richard's voice filled every corner of the hall. Keep your mouth shut about the blood results. If you talk, Hamilton, you'll never work again. And as for that woman and her bastard daughter, they're on their own. The room exploded. Even Helena covered her face in horror. Victoria stood in the center of the hall, calm, composed, unstoppable. She looked at Richard. You didn't just kill our father. You stole my entire life. Richard collapsed into a chair, trembling. And that was only the beginning. From here, the real storm begins. The once glamorous hall of Blackwood Mansion no longer shimmered. The chandeliers still sparkled. The marbles still shone, but every pair of eyes was fixed on one thing, Richard Blackwood. Crumbling, he sat hunched in a velvet chair, shaking like a man watching his own empire burn. And he was. Because tonight, the daughter he tried to erase had returned, and she brought justice with her. Victoria stepped closer, her heels echoing like a judge's gavel. Richard, she said softly, you tried to make me your joke, but now you'll answer for everything. Helena, his wife, looked ready to faint. Richard, you poisoned your own father? Richard shot up, pointing a trembling finger at Victoria. This is all her. She's lying. She made them say it. But Attorney Chun lifted a folder thicker than a brick. Actually, Mr. Blackwood, we have bank statements, forged signatures, and phone recordings that trace all transactions back to you. The crowd gasped again. Then a voice rose from the back. What about the missing Blackwood charity funds? And the offshore accounts? Did he steal those too? The guests once loyal to Richard were now devouring him like wolves. Victoria raised her hand. Calming them, let him speak, she said. Richard's lips tightened into a bitter sneer. You think you can just walk in here and take everything? You're nothing. A maid. A nobody who cleans floors. Victoria stepped forward until she was inches away. No, Richard. I am the heir you tried to bury. The blood you feared. The truth you couldn't erase for the first time in his life. Richard had no words. Diane, the journalist, opened her laptop and turned the screen around. A full investigative report glowed, photos, documents, evidence ready to be published. This goes live at midnight, she said calmly. The room vibrated with tension. Richard lunged forward. You can't do this. I'll sue you. You'll do nothing, Attorney Chun interrupted. Because as of tonight, you're under federal investigation. 2 uniformed officers stepped into the hall. Not to arrest him yet, but enough to remind him his world was collapsing. He stumbled back, defeated. Victoria turned away from him and addressed the crowd, her voice soft but commanding. My mother left this house when I was 5. She was driven out by lies. She raised me alone while Richard spread rumors that we were thieves, gold diggers, anything to hide his crimes. Her gaze swept across the hall, and for years, I believed I had no place in this world, that I didn't deserve better. Her voice tightened with emotion. But tonight, I reclaim everything stolen from me. The crowd stood frozen, some shocked, some in awe. From the corner of the room, an elderly man stepped forward, slow, hesitant. It was Henry Blackwood's former lawyer. Mr. Garrison. Victoria felt her breath catch. Mr. Garrison, you're still alive. He smiled sadly. Alive, but nearly forgotten. Until your mother contacted me before she died. She gave me letters, proof, and asked me to protect them until the right time. He reached into his coat and pulled out a sealed envelope. For you? Victoria opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was a handwritten letter from her mother. Ink faded, edges yellowed, but the words carried a mother's soul. If you are reading this, my sweet girl, it means the truth has finally found light. Remember, you were never unwanted. You were never a mistake. You are a Blackwood by blood and by right. Tears filled Victoria's eyes. For a moment, the entire hall fell silent out of respect. Even the cruelest socialites lowered their gaze. But Richard wasn't done. He stood up again, rage, fear, desperation boiling in his eyes. You think you've won? Even if the truth is real, the estate is mine. The company is mine. The shares are not yours. Mr. Garrison cut in. He handed Attorney Chun another document. Henry Blackwood updated his will before his death. Everything, including the mansion, was to go to his daughter's firstborn child. Victoria froze. You mean? She whispered. Attorney Chun nodded. Double quotes, yes, you. The hall erupted into chaos again. Richard screamed. No, that will was never filed. Mr. Garrison's eyes hardened. Because you bribed the clerk to bury it. But I kept a signed copy. Helena cried out. You stole everything from your own family. Richard spun around, furious. I did it for us. No, Victoria corrected. You did it for yourself. At that moment, the mansion doors opened again. A swarm of reporters surged in, cameras flashing, microphones raised. Diane had sent the story live. Richard's scandal was now everywhere. The officers stepped forward. Mr. Richard Blackwood once said, "We need you to come with us for questioning." Richard stared at Victoria, hatred, fear, and disbelief tangled in his expression. This isn't over, he hissed. Victoria looked him in the eye. It is for you. He was escorted away, shouting empty threats that no longer mattered. The doors slammed behind him. Silence fell. Then, slowly, people began to clap. First softly, then louder, until the entire hall thundered with applause. Not for drama, not for gossip, but for justice. And for the woman who had risen from ashes like a queen reborn. Victoria stood in the center of the hall. For the first time in her life, seen, respected, powerful, but the story wasn't over yet. Because now she had a choice. Claim the empire, or rebuild it from ashes. Both paths would change her life forever. The hall of Blackwood Mansion felt different now. The fear, gone. The cruelty, silenced. The lies, exposed. And at the center of it all stood Victoria Temps, no longer the unnoticed cleaning woman. No longer the girl forced to hide her bloodline. Tonight, she stood as Victoria Temps Blackwood, rightful heir. Attorney Chung closed the final folder. With the original will validated, the entire Blackwood estate returns to its true owner. A wave of shock rippled through the guest. The mansion, the company, the accounts, every legal right belonged to her. Vivian, who had mocked her earlier, whispered to Patricia, God, she really is the heir. But Victoria didn't gloat. She didn't smile. She simply breathed finally free. Hours later, in the grand boardroom, a meeting was called. Executives, shareholders, advisors, all of them gathered. Because the Blackwood Empire needed a new leader. Victoria sat at the table, calm, elegant, glowing in her mother's dress. The chairman cleared his throat. We must vote on the new CEO. Everyone glanced around nervously. Is there any nominee? Mr. Garrison stood slowly. I nominate Victoria Temps Blackwood. A loud murmur filled the room. She has no corporate experience. She's been a maid. Is this even allowed? Victoria lifted her hand gently. I don't want the CEO position, she said. I want someone competent, honest, and loyal. She turned toward the board members. I nominate Ms. Elena Morris, the most ethical senior executive. Gasps, whispers, surprised stares. Elena, a humble woman who had worked silently for 20 years, froze. Me. She whispered, but why? Victoria smiled warmly. Because you're the only one who visited my mother in the hospital. The only one who never bowed to Richard's cruelty. And because a kingdom needs honesty, not greed. For the first time, Elena's eyes filled with tears. The board voted and unanimously. Elena Morris became the new CEO. But the biggest surprise came next. Victoria turned to the board. I will sit as co-chairwoman, not to control the company, but to protect it from ever being corrupted again. The room applauded, genuine this time. 3 days later, Richard Blackwood stood in court, pale, defeated, surrounded by lawyers no longer interested in saving him. The judge read out the charges: fraud, embezzlement, cover-up, and suspicion of involvement in Henry Blackwood's poisoning Richard's hands shook as the judge delivered the verdict, bail denied. Victoria sat in the courtroom, silent, calm, dignified. As Richard was handcuffed, he glared at her one last time. You ruined everything. Victoria met his gaze steadily. No, Richard, you ruined yourself. I just stepped out of the shadows. He was taken away. The doors slammed shut behind him. And with that sound, 20 years of pain lifted from her shoulders. That evening, Victoria walked through the mansion quietly. Every corridor held memories she never got to live. She reached her mother's old room locked for years. With trembling hands, she turned the key. The door creaked open. Inside, everything was untouched. Her mother's perfume still lingered faintly in the air. A half-finished painting sat by the window. Books, notes, a diary. Victoria sat on the bed and opened the diary to the last page. One day, my daughter will return to the life stolen from her. And when she does, she will shine so brightly that the world will understand why she could never be broken. Tears streamed down Victoria's face. For the first time, they were not tears of pain, but of pride. She whispered into the quiet room, Mom, I did it. I reclaimed everything for you. A week later, Blackwood Mansion reopened with a grand event, not for the elite this time, but for charity workers, single mothers, honest employees, and community leaders. Victoria stood on the stage as the new co-chairwoman. This mansion was once a place of arrogance, she said. Today, it becomes a place of opportunity. Huge applause. Elena, the new CEO, walked up beside her. We will create scholarships, Victoria continued, fund shelters, protect women in danger, and build a future my mother would be proud of. For the first time, she wasn't the servant in the mansion. She was the one building it. Weeks later, another high-profile gala took place at the mansion. This time, Victoria didn't enter as a victim or a joke. She entered as a diva, powerful, graceful, unshakable. The same guests who once mocked her now stood aside and bowed their heads with respect. One of them whispered, Look at her, the cleaning lady who became the queen. Victoria smiled, not out of pride, but peace, because she finally understood. It was never about proving herself. It was about reclaiming her truth. And she did. And that was the incredible story of Victoria Thames, the cleaning lady who rose from shadows to claim her destiny. A reminder that courage, patience, and truth always triumph over cruelty and greed. If you love this story, don't forget to hit the like button to show your support. Subscribe to Black Tale Stories for more shocking tales of justice and revenge, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a story where the underdog takes the crown. Comment below which part of Victoria's journey shocked you the most. We love reading your thoughts. Remember, in a world full of secrets, sometimes the quietest person in the room is the one who changes everything.